wealth management is about nation building. It is about your future. It is about the quality of life in your community. And it's about self-determination. It's about determining that in our future, we are going to have this in our community, and we are able to provide that because we have the wherewithal to do that. Communities that have, up until this time, perhaps lived in abject poverty are suddenly coming into a lot of money. And so how do you manage that? And it's happening more and more. We are seeing communities that are wondering, how do we proceed? What do we do? What we've discovered is that there is a process that communities should go through in terms of managing their wealth. A good place to start is to consider what your community priorities are. And that's not going to come from one person working in isolation thinking this is what we should do. It is about engaging a community. So when you establish your community priorities, it is a best practice to determine the purpose of this new wealth by engaging community members. And why is that? Because if you get the buy-in from your community in terms of what your priorities are, it helps to build consensus and create harmony. So now that you know why it's important to engage the community, let's talk about how you do that. So we know then that a communication plan sets out the methods and process on how you will effectively engage your community. So change can happen in two different ways. It can happen by default. What will happen, and sometimes it works out. You know, people will commend you for a job well done, and you're just thinking, well, thank God it worked out because there wasn't really a plan, but it worked out. And it can happen by design, where you actually proactively manage that change. So obviously, when it comes to wealth management, we're going to be hoping that you will be proactively managing that change. Now people are aware, they become a little more interested. And so the next level, of course, is understanding. And that means they're going to know better what's happening. We need to have a team in place that will work with you. So for instance, the questions that you might ask is, does your lawyer have experience with Aboriginal trusts and the capacity to draft a trust deed? So often what we found is Aboriginal communities, they want to spend money today, but at the same time they are there for their future generations, because I think that is the essence of who we are as Aboriginal people. We do want to provide for our future generations. So if we have $30 million, and when we look at those numbers, we realize that, say for housing, for $300,000, we would require 1% of that $30 million on an annual basis. Joint ventures, 1.5%, and scholarships and elder programs, 0.55%. So how much risk are you prepared to take to achieve the returns that you require? That's always the question. And the question we're asking is, what asset mix is appropriate in meeting the required return? So how are you going to take that $30 million and how are you going to invest it? And what are you going to invest it in? This is a huge decision that trustees have to make right here, determining how that money is going to be allocated. So what we do then is we will take communities through an exercise of determining what is the appropriate mix. So if we want to achieve a 5.5% return in a sample portfolio, and we just put these numbers in here because we work with these numbers so often. To achieve that portfolio, you would have to have a 30% in equities, 65% in bonds, and 5% in cash equivalents. Becoming a trustee is a huge responsibility. And people who take that role on take it very seriously, and I'm glad that they do. It's important when you're gaining buy-in to let people see what the vision is. So just briefly, the investment policy, I'm not going to get into detail about that, but that's going to tell you how your money can be invested. I think that what you need to know is that for future generations, anything in the trust is protected from creditors. You can have completely banned members as your trustees. You can have independent trustees, meaning outside people, so that could be, someone from the community, surrounding community, could be your lawyer, your accountant. So here's where you can actually have your council or your trustees, or a combination of them, governed by community bylaws determining how that money is going to be spent. So once we have everything set up and we have an investment policy in place, we determine the structure of the portfolio. We then go into the manager selection. If you have people in your community taking interest in the affairs of a trust and how it impacts the community, those are your future leaders. This is nation building. This is what's happening. People are taking not only an interest, but they're taking responsibility for today's wealth and tomorrow's future wealth. Aboriginal people are wealthy people. And then, yes, dollars and cents, they are what we do. It is going to become part of your future. But at the same time, you are not in poverty. You have so much wealth. And if you can have that mindset, it's amazing the things that you will be able to accomplish and the future generations of your communities will be able to accomplish. Thank you.